So this is a fiber optic receiver. It's an old one, and it's marked HP, Hewlett-Packard. And the part number is that's too small for me to read. It is a PDT0412/A3. And the interesting thing about this photodiode is it's not silicon. It's actually made out of indium gallium arsenide. So indium, gallium, and arsenic go into the making of this type of sensor. And I'll show you why this sensor is so fancy. On the other video that I showed photodiodes, I talked about silicon photodiodes only going from about 400 nanometers to 1100 nanometers. Well, this one goes from about 1100 nanometers up to 1600 nanometers. So it's like a second gear. It's like first gear and visible, and the second gear and the infrared. And there are other types of photodetectors that even go higher, but this one handles the infrared quite nicely. So I thought, hey, that'd be great. If you go look at buying an InGaAs PIN diode, PIN diode is a particular type. It's a intrinsic junction. It's the way that the processing is done. Anyway, it's the way photodiodes are made. And if you look up gallium arsenide, indium gallium arsenide photodiodes, they're quite expensive. The cheapest that I've seen is like $50 up to a couple $100. So I've never owned one. They're just too expensive to have in the lab. So I was on eBay the other day and I saw these, and these were $5. I don't know where the guy got them. They are old, but they're $5. And I thought, wow, that would be great. So let me pull off the little protective thing here. So there's two leads. They're gold plated, of course. And inside is the optical sensor down in there. The pin diode is way down in there. And then there's this, almost looks kind of like a BNC, but this is a fancy little a connector for fiber optics. And so I thought, well, that's not going to do me much good. I really kind of wanted just the diode all by itself. So what I did was I went over to the milling machine. First I cut off most of the connector with a hacksaw, and then I went in with a milling machine, and I milled off. So let's see here, let's get these both in the same orientation. There we go. So I milled off the whole top section and I was just left with this little section here, and you can see the actual device recessed a little bit in the hole here. I thought it'd be okay to have that recess. I get a good view of the package. So originally the package was like in a TO3, not a TO3, a TO92 package. Looks a little bit bigger than that, but something like a short TO92 package. It's got a little lens on it. I doubt that the lens is glass, because glass doesn't really do too good up those frequencies either. So it might be quartz, is my guess. And so, yeah, that's kind of why they're expensive. Is the packaging is expensive, the part is expensive, the material is expensive. So I thought, okay, great. So now this part here is just kind of a generic pin diode. And so if I build up another circuit here and I put this diode instead, now I've got a silicon diode that goes from about 400 nanometers up to maybe 1100, and then this one will take off from like 1000 up to 1600, something like that. And between the two of them, I'll be able to see the world. Well, at least up to 1600. Yeah, let's see if we can get that in a circuit. So here's the data sheet for the photodiode. Let's see what it says about it. It says it's good from 1200 to 1650 nanometers. High responsivity. High reliability planar InGaAs diode. Low dark current. And it's good for optical data communication, optics to electronic converters, LANs, blah, 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 single mode, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, let's see what it says. Reverse voltage, 20 volts, huh? That's not very much. Reverse current, 12 milliamps. Forward voltage is a volt. Forward current, 5 milliamps. Now remember, we're going to be operating this in zero bias conditions, so we're just going to have zeros all across here, and it will generate its own current. Operating temperatures, nice wide range. Dark current, 1 nanoamp. Wow. 1 picofarad. See, we have the 40. So which one do we have? We've got the 40, right? 40, yeah. So we've got 1.7 picofarad. So this is the limiting factor to how fast this thing can go, like in a fiber optic application. Wavelengths. Oh yeah, rise and fall times 0.5 nanoseconds. The fancier part can do a quarter of a nanosecond, but 0.5 nanoseconds, that's pretty good. So a nanosecond's about that big, something like 11.8 inches, if my calculations, if I remember the calculation. So that's how far light will go in a nanosecond. And so half a nanosecond, yeah, not much. So I found this online. I think this will be a nice representation of what's going on here. This is a silicon photodiode, and this is responsivity in amps per watt. Remember, it generates so many microamps per microwatt of power. Just put it in amps per watt since it's a ratio. So this is the visible range. Humans can see about 400 to 700, somewhere in there. So photodiodes aren't actually very great where we see things. They're actually a little bit better in the near infrared. So that remote control that we looked at, it's probably around 850. That's a common 820, 850 is a common wavelength for remote controls. It's called near infrared. And so that was up here. So the silicon was quite responsive to that frequency of light. And then at about 1100, silicon stops working. And that's why this InGaAs sensor takes over. So it's doing quite well from 1200 to 1650, exactly what the datasheet said. So they're taking the peak of this curve and saying, yeah, that's where it operates. This looks like it came from a dual band diode, so it had both of these diodes in the same package. That's pretty cool. I'd like to get a hold of one of those. Anyway, so we're going to be building this. Now, testing it might be trickier because I'm not sure if I have anything up here. I think the only thing that I might have is a green laser. Now, you would think, well, wait a minute, green laser is around 500 nanometers, somewhere down here. Here's green. Why do you think it would be good up here? Well, green lasers are built using infrared lasers, and they pump a nonlinear piece of crystal, and that piece of crystal then resonates at green wavelengths and outputs it. So it's a conversion. It starts its life over here and it ends up over in green. Now, those green laser pointers are notorious for leaking out the IR light. There's a blocking filter usually in them to kill that IR. It's not really safe. You don't want to be sharing that in your eye, and it's at a much more it's a much higher power than the green is, because you lose a lot of efficiency converting from this infrared light down to green light. So it's at a much higher power, so a little bit will leak out. So I think we'll be able to use that green laser pointer to stimulate our sensor. So I have the other circuit here. That's all as far as I zoom in, but I've put on the photodiode and the amplifier, same circuit as the other one, and I'm examining the output And so I thought, okay, where do I come up with the correct stimulus? I need to be somewhere between 1200 and 1600. And just for grins, I shined the remote control on it. Now, Wikipedia says, or somebody says on Google, that the standard wavelength for remote controls is 940 nanometers. So 940 nanometers is way down here for the InGaAs sensor. But if I shine it on the old one, of course it flashes, and I shine it on the new one, we'll take a look at the oscilloscope. We're seeing some signal, even though it's very, very small. It's about 200 millivolts. So it's certainly not big enough to light up the LED. The LED is in the circuit like the other one. So, but a little bit's coming through. It is seeing a little bit. So the sensor is working, and the circuit is working. And if I ever have the opportunity to shine some light on it that's between 1200 and 1600, I should be able to see it. Okay, got out the green laser pointer. There we go, nice and bright. And if I kind of wiggle it in over the photodiode, we can see it up here on the screen, and it's giving us the signal. And I think if we watch the blue LED, see if I can get the, there we go, nice and bright. So there we go. The blue LED is turning on. I think you can see that in the camera. Hopefully. Oh, there we go. Yeah, there it goes. Anyway, the like I said, the laser in a green laser pointer is infrared, and it pumps a neodymium, nonlinear crystal, I believe it's neodymium. It's 532 nanometers is the green. And so if you double that number, that's the IR laser frequency that's required. So it's 1064, which is up kind of where these InGaAs detectors work. So anyway, we're seeing the leakage out of this thing. Like I said, there's usually a filter in them to knock out the IR. So if we took this apart and took out that IR filter and took out the neodymium, we'd have a very, very bright IR laser, which would be very dangerous, because since you can't see it, you don't blink. And if you don't blink, then it can do damage to the eye. So don't do that.